I remember very vividly a lot of orphans and then the beggars everywhere. We overcame it by the attitude of people's commitment to save our country.
Do you see, though, a trend in terms of those global issues being resolved?
It's up to us. We should make Korea a better place to do business.
Korea's remarkable economic growth is often called the miracle on the Han. Korea rose up from the ashes of the Korean War to become the world's 10th largest economy. Behind this remarkable growth lies Korea's powerful family-owned conglomerates such as Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK, known as the Chaebol. 62 years ago, the Federation of Korean Industries was set up to represent these companies. To talk about the role of the Chaebol in Korea's past and future, our globalist today is Kwon Tae-shin, a career economic policymaker and current vice chairman of FKI.
지난 60년대 초에 불과 3천여만 달러에 지나지 않던 우리의 수출은 10여 년이 지난 지금에는 그 100배가 넘는 30억 달러를 넘어서 오는 1980년대에 100억 달러 수출이 무난하게 달성될 것이 확실해지고 있습니다.
변화라는 건 무섭습니다. 두렵고 싫고. 살아남는 것은 강하고 튼튼하고 큰 사람만 살아나는 것이 아니라 변화에 적응하는 사람이나 종족이나 살아남고.
Vice Chairman Kwon, welcome to the Globalist.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you.
Yes, it is our honor. So, before the world knew about Korea, they knew about Korean companies, Samsung, Hyundai Cars, LG, or Lucky Gold Star Electronics. The Korean companies really played a big role in Korea's economic development. What role did they play, do you think?
I think Korean big companies are real diplomat. When I studied in the States in 1980, they didn't know where Korea is located. And they sometimes asked me whether I'm Chinese, Japanese.
Not even South or North Korean.
That's true. But when I was Korean ambassador in Paris, OECD.
What year was that?
2006 to 2008. And then Korean mobile phone, very popular, and Korean Hyundai cars. So they recognize Korea produced those top-class products.
Yes. But in the very beginning, though, they didn't even know Samsung or Hyundai, Lucky Gold Star was even a Korean company.
I can tell you a joke.
Yes, please.
In 2003, when late President Roh Moo-hyun followed our advice, you should go to the States, and U.S. is the most important country to us. And using that occasion, we would like to make a lot of advertisement to New York Times, Wall Street Journal, then ask our big corporations like Hyundai Automobiles to make some advertisement, and then those newspapers can cover our news. But they worried because Hyundai, they thought it is Japanese company, but if they advertise visit of President Roh Moo-hyun, they will be recognized as a Korean company. So they worried about it.
Yes, because at first it was not to their advantage to be known as a Korean
That's
company.
true.
They were much more developed than the country Korea.
But it is the miracle. When I went to the States in 1980, the first thing I bought Sony television. In 1998, when I visited the UK as Korean Financial Council of Korean Embassy, first thing I bought Sony, and Sony big man.
Yep.
Now, even after I think early 2000s, I visited many big cities, all big department stores. Samsung at the top, Sony much behind us. So it is a miracle.
Heavy industries that you talked about, plus manufacturing, Samsung, automobiles, electronics, they're really the backbone of Korea's economic development. That's how Korea grew.
You know, at the beginning stage, if you want to make a factory to produce something, you need to have money. We didn't have any money. Until 1960s, early 1960s, more than half of government revenue are US aid. And then even early 1970s, all the military spending, all US aid. So it's all man-made. We produced it out of nothing by late President Park Chung-hee, because we didn't have any endowed capital like a diamond, oil. We only use our human capital to produce it. So it was made by step. It was at first light industry, textiles, garments. And then President Park and government officials thought, we need to make machinery to produce textiles. So we need to produce machinery industry and steel industry. So it was man-made, heavy and chemical industries. Then during that way, we may have automobile companies and then shipbuilding companies, and they don't believe in us. Korea cannot produce those things. But now we produce semiconductors, mobile phones. So the concept of Korean big companies changed. In addition to that, because of our contents, Korean waves, Korean culture, K-pop, so mixing with those cultural changes, our products became more popular. And now Korea is the 10th largest economy, so Korea is recognized as a big country.
You talked about when you first came up to Seoul and what you saw. You have a very unique background, because as the current FKI vice chairman, you are a career government official. You put together economic policies in a way to guide and control the Chaebol. You represent Korea abroad. Now you represent Korea Chaebol. So who is Kwon Tae-shin?
That's a good question. From the beginning of my government official life, because I spoke English a little bit better than others, so I usually worked in the international finance or economic cooperation area. And then I had a discussion with US government official, and then after a whole day discussion, I found out they don't think about the future of Korea. They only think about the benefit and profit of their own company. That is Agrico, who was selling product to Korean companies. So from that time on, I think it is government officials' duty and job to protect and to help Korean companies, our companies.
So even as your role as a government official, you felt that one of your roles was to also protect Korean companies.
And then to make Korea a better place to do business, better place to do investment.
So further down, how were you able to do that?
I think government officials' major job and politicians' major job, the utmost job, is to make people happy by creating jobs. And jobs cannot be made by the government. It can be made by the companies. So promoting direct investment from abroad and promoting Korean companies' investment, then we can create more jobs for young people. That's almost the target for everybody. So when I was in the overseas investment division in the Ministry of Finance, Geneva and Churi, those two city government officials visited me, asking me to help Korean companies more invest in those two cities. And each cities argue they are better.
Yeah.
And then many different states, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, they all came to Korea to invest more. So it is government officials' job to promote businesses and to promote foreign direct investment. And it can be done by making a lot of reforms, like regulatory reform, labor reform, educational reform. So even I am now in Federation of Korean Industries representing big corporations, but my thinking, my philosophy, same as before.
You know, the government has a role in the development of companies, private companies as well. Even though you've dated other countries, the UK and European countries who actually do play a very active role, there is a perception that Korea has a closer relationship between Korean government and companies than others. Is that unfair?
I don't think it's unfair. Rather, government, the officials should have close contact and close talks with businesses, because government officials do not know what's going on in the market. So they need to have information, they need to have argument, they need to have complaint. Korea was called Korean cooperation. From abroad, they thought Korean government and Korean companies stay together. Same.
One and the same.
Yeah. Because those days, because as I told you, we didn't have any big corporations, we didn't have any accumulated capital, domestic capital. So we intentionally give chances for some companies to grow big by giving tax subsidy, financial preferential treatment, and then let them buy land cheaply. Government officials do not know everything. They need to hear people and see people. But because of location, because of laws, they are reluctant to see people.
자동차 수출국 대열에 오른 우리나라는 77년에 100억 달러 수출을 달성했습니다. 10억 달러 돌파 후 7년 만의 일입니다.
1990년대에 들어와서는 남북한이 동시에 UN 회원국이 됨으로써 새로운 출발을 함께 했습니다.
although the big corporations had a big role in Korea's economic developments, today the terminology Chaebol has a negative implication. When you think about Chaebol, you think about being too big, being unfair, being a bully. I mean, all these kind of negative aspects of it. So what happened during this period? I mean, is it just the nature of history?
Our thinking cannot adapt to changing environment, changing reality. Big corporations is not old style big corporations. Conglomerates itself is not bad thing. It's a very good one. And because we have very big corporations, we could succeed in fast economic development. And they can export, they can create jobs, and then they pay a lot of taxes. And everybody wants to join the Samsung Electronics or Hyundai Automobiles. But still they criticize it because they have the old style perception. So we need to change it. And then because of a very heavy inheritance tax, there is no company owned by one family for a long time. But in other points, even in abroad, there are many big corporations owned by one family. The semiconductors or batteries, which is our big brand these days, you need to develop things. And it cannot be done by professional manager like me, because our term is 3 years or 6 years, 5 years. So you cannot see fruit. It could have been possible because it is done by family, by Lee Byung-chul, by Go Bun-mu. Those people made a big decision, risking their company's life. If they fail this investment, their research and development, it can fail. But they did it because it was owned by family, one person.
So in a way, it is the sustainability of a corporate's goals and missions that were linked to a family leading a company that allowed a lot of these companies to maintain their position in the world today?
I think people have confused about the concept of big conglomerates. Some people say because it is big, they criticize it. And some other people say, son of a Chaebol family. And then all kind of illegal, immoral things happen. So because it is interesting. But in reality, if those companies behave like that, it cannot survive. Because in market economy, if your product is very expensive, not good quality, you cannot survive. So there is always competition everywhere, especially when you sell goods abroad. You need to compete with other big corporations abroad. But because Korea has a very unique country to control big corporations, only because it is very big. Other countries, they have Fair Trade Commission.
Yes.
They promote competition by controlling merger and acquisition or monopoly, not like us. And therefore, our Samsung market capitalization is just 1/7 of that of Apple competitor. And then Hyundai Automobiles, 1/8 of Toyota. Toyota and Apple do not have that kind of regulations. But in Korea, because those companies are big, they have extra 240 extra regulations which cannot move well. So gradually we are losing engine of growth.
So is the future dark, dim, difficult for Korean big Chaebol?
I think so. Because we could have made a miracle because we were very lucky. And then that is coming from after World War II, Bretton Woods Agreement, making free trade, liberal trade agreement, because they don't want to make another World War III. But now it is changed because U.S.-China dispute.
Yes.
And because the Mr. Trump's nationalism, America first, and then because of COVID-19. So it is the world economic trade environment is not favorable to us as before.
All of these things that we're talking about are challenges that Korea's companies and the government needs to overcome. But from the outside world, though, you travel the world as the FKI vice chairman, and you talk to other government officials, to other corporate heads about Korea's businesses. It seems that there's a very positive or resurgence of the importance of Korean companies in the global environment. Do you see that? No?
No, I don't think so. Because Korea, without resources, natural resources, land is small. So Korea was a very unhappy country at the beginning. But now Korea is 10th largest economy in the world. You could have done because this miracle, because we support businesses. But now doing business in Korea very difficult. So many Korean companies went abroad, even small and medium companies. So we should make Korea a better place to do business.
Do you see, though, a trend in terms of those issues being resolved?
It's up to us, because there are a lot of capacities and proven track record. Korea can overcome it. Because after Korean War, from 1950 to 1953, I came up to Seoul, 1955. Everything was completely destructed. I remember very vividly a lot of orphans and then the beggars everywhere. We overcame it. And then 1997 and 8, when I was chief secretary to Deputy Prime Minister Im Chang-yeol, we overcame it because people donated the gold. The amount itself was not important. The amount was about 250 tons. That's about $3 or $4 billion US. But by the attitude of people's commitment to save our country, now we see Korean culture after Gangnam Style and the BTS, and then Korean movies. So there are a lot of rooms Korea can revive, because it is a very pity. Our per capita, the potential growth rate is going down and down. And now this year, our growth rate forecast is lower than that of Japan.
Yep, we have a long ways to go. Yep.
Our topic is globalist.
Yes.
Korea, our trade dependency ratio is more than 75%. And Korea cannot survive alone. So we need to do business, trade, invest, and meet abroad. We need to meet international standard. Then we should not discriminate foreigners or other people in Korea. We should behave like an international country. So Koreans should be more globalized. So they should see globalists.
I totally agree with you. So that's one thing we're totally in agreement with. And I think that is one of the priorities of the current government. So hopefully that will be something that will happen.
Korea has a kind of DNA overcoming crisis. So this is a big crisis, but I'm sure we can overcome it. As we have seen many young people's new current, the Korean cultural current, they are genius, so we can overcome it.
Well, they are your grandchildren. They are your future generation.
Absolutely.
And so for me, that's it. Next week, we'll be back with another globalist who is putting Korea on the map. Sun Jie out.